chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security and is charged with keeping us all safe from terrorist attacks. He also sits on the Committee of Foreign Affairs, making sure we have good relations around the world. And he represents the 10th District of Texas, making sure his constituents' needs are always taken care of here in Washington. But all of us know Congressman McCaul is much, much more than that to us. In Congress, the childhood cancer community has no stronger champion. When it comes to securing more funding for research, to getting better drugs for our children, and providing support for the children who have survived, no one has done more or fought harder for us all. And if that isn't enough, we're all thrilled that Congressman McCaul, the co-chair of the Childhood Cancer Caucus, has just taken the lead in drafting and about to introduce the Childhood Cancer STAR Act, an important bill to support childhood cancer. Let me take just 1 minute to thank Andy Taylor, his legislative director. He probably hasn't slept all week from getting ready for this, to discuss our issues and to help us find solutions with the Congressman. He has gone above and beyond his job and has made childhood cancer a personal mission along with the Congressman. He is a man of great integrity, Congressman, and we want you to know how much we all admire and respect Andy as well. I'd like to take a moment to present you with a card from Rex Ryan, who is from your district. He was unable to join you today, and he is a stage 4 neuroblastoma survivor, and he wanted to make sure that
my buddy Rex.
Yeah, everybody Rex. Congressman, you may officially represent the 10th District of Texas, but to all in the room and the survivors of childhood cancer families and friends, we consider you to be our Congressman. On behalf of the entire childhood cancer community, thank you for always working in honor, in memory, and in defense of all children with cancer. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm usually not like John Boehner, and I start crying. I'm not a tough Homeland Security guy on TV, but wow, thank you so much. Really means a lot. We've all worked so hard on this issue, and I see so many familiar faces out there, parents and survivors. I do also want to thank Andy Taylor, who is really the force, the genius behind everything we do, and is so committed to the cause. And I know all of you are as well. I have 5 teenagers at home, so you can imagine the Homeland Security issues I have. Someone asked me the difference between a teenager and a terrorist. I said, what's that? He said, well, you can negotiate with the terrorist. But I'm reminded, as I look at them, how fortunate I am. And when I started this cause almost a decade ago, they were much younger. And how fortunate I am that they were not stricken by this horrible disease that we know is childhood cancer. But I know many of you out there have been hit with this horrible disease. My job as chairman of Homeland Security is to protect the American people, but I can't think of a better cause than this, to protect our children at home from one of the deadly diseases. And I just want to, I know most of you have heard these stats, but I didn't want to go over them. I think they're worth repeating over and over again. By the way, the St. Baldrick Foundation wanted me to shave my head. Until I go on TV every now and then, I'd have to, but that may be a good cause. I can say why I shaved it. But over 15,000 children are diagnosed with this every year, each and every year. As you all know, it's a leading disease killer of children in the United States. I think that stat alone really speaks volumes as to why we're here. We want to conquer this disease so that future generations don't have to deal with what you're dealing with here in the room and what you have dealt with. 2/3 of the survivors, and this is a lot of people, you know, think once you've survived that the issue's over, and it's not. It's really just begun. They suffer from late effects of their disease or treatment, including secondary cancers and organ damage and a whole host of other problems associated with that. And then finally, only 4% of NCI's budget goes to pediatric cancer research. Now, that one is really shameful, because when you look at the investment and the outlay of years in the future, why aren't we putting more of that research dollars into protecting our children and saving their lives? When we have people struggle with cancer, all different types. My father died from cancer, but with a shorter lifespan ahead of him. These children have such a great lifespan ahead of them, and we need to do better than 4%. We need to do much better than that. As most of you know, the Creating Hope Act was an experimental piece of legislation that was not easy to pass, that took a lot of hard work, pounding on doors and lobbying and bringing young childhood cancer survivors to lobby members of Congress. Andy worked very hard on this. Many of you in the room. Nancy Goodman had the sort of genius idea of the Creating Hope Act, which was passed. But better than that, we demonstrated that it actually works. And I'm really proud to say, you know, it's not, we do a lot of things in Washington that really amount to nothing. And a lot of bickering and fighting over this and that, but I can't think of anything more rewarding than passing a bill that I can think about, and we can all think about, that actually saves lives. As a result of the Creating Hope Act now, we have the first neuroblastoma drug approved by the FDA. And so little Rex Ryan, I saw him at Dell Children's Hospital in Austin, where I live, where the clinical trial took place. He's a cute little 3-year-old blonde-haired boy, full of energy. A visitor with his parents, and to see that and to see him alive, where without this drug, he certainly would not have survived. Man, I can't tell you how powerful an experience that is, far more than probably anything I've ever done as a member of Congress. This will be up for a reauthorization to make it permanent in the Cures Act, which will be a must-pass legislation bill. Ever since the Creating Hope Act, this neuroblastoma drug is only the second FDA-approved cancer drug for children since the 1980s. And I remember that talking about the Creating Hope Act, why it was so important, because we hadn't had a drug approved since the 1980s for our children. What is more important than that? We do so many things that are less important. The voucher system actually works. I do want to remind everybody that we have our annual Childhood Cancer Summit coming up, and it will be Friday, September the 18th here in Washington. It will be the 6th annual Childhood Cancer Summit, and I encourage all of you to attend. It's a great rally session for parents who have lost their children or survivors who have gotten through this horrible disease but have many survivorship issues. Which takes me to the STAR Act. And I want to tell you a little bit about what the STAR Act does. As always, we want the advocates to help us with the members of Congress. This is an advocate-driven bill. This is a bill created by you. I'm a messenger. I created the Childhood Cancer Caucus to give these little children that don't have lobbyists, that are paid high dollar to lobby for them. I created it to give them basically a voice in the Congress. These little children that don't have a voice, that are stricken with this disease. And you are their voice. And I am their voice. And together we can get this stuff done. Together we've done a lot. we've done a lot. One thing you'll see in the Cures Act, a provision that I've already got included, is what's called compassionate use. And it dates me back to a friend of mine, Andrea Sloan, who had cervical cancer, and she was denied access to a clinical trial drug, and I watched her die on her deathbed. She said, please do something about this so that the next person that has to deal with this and are on their deathbed, what is happening to me won't happen to somebody else. And so the Andrea Sloan Cures Act is part of the overall bill that will provide greater access to life-saving medications for terminally ill patients. And I would argue that the majority of these, it will open it up to the pediatric, so that a lot of these children that currently would not have access to these life-saving medications, after the passage of this bill, they will. The STAR Act will be introduced this week, and STAR stands for Survivorship, Treatment, Access, and Research. It really reflects the priorities of the advocacy community. And it does several things. I do want to go through them just because I think it's important. It would authorize the NCI to establish a biorepository of tumor specimens for research purposes. It authorizes grants to state cancer registries to identify and track incidences of childhood cancer. It ensures that at least one pediatric oncologist will be included on the National Cancer Advisory Board. Why don't we have a childhood cancer doctor on this board? It's completely unacceptable that we don't have a pediatric oncologist on the National Cancer Advisory Board. I don't understand the thinking. I don't understand why we're not including childhood cancer in this overall equation. It will require, again, companies to make their compassionate use policies public under the Andrea Sloan Cure Act. It establishes a pilot program to develop model systems for monitoring and caring for childhood cancer survivors. It authorizes grants to improve care for childhood cancer survivors and requires a report on barriers to obtaining and paying for survivor care. We're going to get more of this information out to you with the pocket cards, and as you talk to members of Congress, the more members we can get signed up on the bill, the better chances we have of getting this passed and signed into law. I find no reason why any member could not support this. There's absolutely no reason. As was mentioned before, as early as next week, the House will vote on the 21st Century Cures Act. This provides a $10 billion increase for NIH. Again, it reauthorizes the Creating Hope Act. It requires companies to make their compassionate use policies public again, and it will incentivize companies to repurpose existing drugs for rare diseases like childhood cancer. So, you know, we've got a ways to go, but we've done a lot of great things in just the past 10 years. We've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot more to do to eradicate this disease once and for all, to save our children. And it may not happen in our children's lifetime, but I certainly hope that it happens in their children's lifetime. They will look back on this movement, this cause, and remember the efforts. And remember that there was a generation who stood up for the kids that had cancer to finally conquer it once and for all. I can't tell you how proud I am to be a part of this. I'm just an advocate. I'm a messenger for the team. I have a lot on my plate trying to protect us from threats of terrorism and other things, but this, I can't think of anything more important. I was on a red-eye flight from California last night, which is why I'm probably a little foggy right now. But this was, so that's why I was on that red eye, because this is so important to me. I wanted to be here today to personally come by and say thank you for everything you've done for this cause, because you are the foot soldiers out there that make it happen. Those of us in the Congress, again, are just really the messengers for you. But you do this without compensation. You do it because you believe in it. because it's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, when you look back on your life, it's, did I make a difference in the lives of others? What greater place to make a difference than with our children? So thank you all so much.